Good morning. We're live on the Falcons Podcast on YouTube, but we want to bring in our Facebook groups as well, Atlanta Falcons on SI and Scott Kennedy Sports. We'll bring in Facebook and we'll get going here. Got a lot to talk about. 1 week until camp starts. We have made it through most of July. It's almost time for football season. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. My name is Scott Kennedy. I will be your host today. Nick Kendall will be joining me shortly. He's taking care of some daddy duties at bright and early. I think it's 5:35 out where he is in the morning, so we give him a little bit of leeway. First time back in a while. We missed Monday after a weekend of travel. I just was not up for it. Just no excuses. I didn't have it in me to go Monday, so we're glad to be back. We've missed y'all, and want to say hello to some folks that are in here already today that have come in already, like Mitchell Angeloni. He says, "Good morning, fellas. Looking forward to the show. Rise up. Appreciate you." We appreciate you. Appreciate you coming in nice and early. And speaking of coming in early with the orange like the sunrise, Coach comes in with a $20 super chat. Says it's been too long. It's been a little hit and miss in the offseason here since camp let out, travel, baseball season for the boy. Had several weddings to go to. I feel like I'm in my late 20s again. Just got back from one this weekend in Charlotte. So all of that kind of stuff. So it's been a little hit and miss. Not just you missing us, we have missed you as well. He says, hope y'all are well. Have a great show. Coach just got better already. The sunrise, Michael Ronquillo is here. Says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons Podcast. Yeah, Nick will be joining us shortly. And I always love it when the folks that come in that see us on demand, whether it's through the podcast or watching the videos, because we do get probably 10x views on demand as opposed to live. So I always love it when a guy like Mrod777 comes in and gets a chance to join a live show like you did today. He says, finally caught a live one. We got a live one here. So make sure you hit that like button and see if you give us a share. That helps bring in more Atlanta Falcons fans to the show. Keith and Ellen Johnson always coming in with some stars. Good to see you, Keith, and or Ellen Johnson, or both. Good morning to you as well. Archangel is here. And Jordan Brown says, good morning, Scott. Who else are we expecting on the PFF list? Depends on which lists. The ones that we've been looking at here recently have been the ESPN rankings, and we'll talk a little bit about those today. Just published from Daniel Flick on FalconsSI.com. The rankings for Kirk Cousins were in, and he did not make the top 10 quarterbacks. He is in the honorable mentions. Is that fair? We'll get into that. I'll ask Nick. I won't bias what he says. I actually think that's fair. He was playing at a top 5 level last year before he got hurt. I mean, 18 touchdowns. Was it 7 interceptions? Maybe it might not even been that many. He was on pace for one of his best seasons. He was playing at a top 5 level last year. But new coach, new system, new team, new Achilles. He'll be 36 next month. Was that an outlier where he's going to be a top 5 quarterback again, or will he be right around in that 10 to 12 range, where he's been a lot of his career? I don't think that's a big snub, honestly, seeing Kirk Cousins if he's in the 11, 12, 13, 14 range. I don't think that's a big snub. Does he have a chance to play his way up into a higher tier? Sure, of course. But, you look at the guys ahead of him and you might say, okay, is Dak there? Well, hell, Dak was playing at an MVP level last year, and I think he was 9 or 10. All right. There's some good quarterbacks in this league. Lamar Jackson, MVP. Joe Burrow coming back. Younger, you feel like he's got a chance to come back from the injury, maybe a little better, a little quicker. Same team, same weapons, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not really all that upset. Not that I get too upset about it anyway. The one that bothers me that finally got his due is Chris Lindstrom. That's the one that has bothered me in the past when you see him down around 6 behind guys like Quentin Nelson, who's been pretty mediocre the last several years with the Indianapolis Colts. After being a number 6 overall draft pick and then playing really well his first couple of years, he's been coasting on those, his early Q rating, no pun intended with him being Quentin. But he's been getting by on reputation the last couple of years. And meanwhile, Chris Lindstrom has been playing significantly better, but for a 7-win team, losing team for over and over and over again, that he's had to work his way up a little bit more. But the ESPN rankings that came from NFL personnel and executives, they had him second, which is just fine. If they have Zach Martin ahead of him, so be it. I'm not too worried about that. That's one of those. Okay, that's in the right neighborhood. Down at 6 or 7 where he's been in the past, Chris Lindstrom, I'm not having that. That's just, he's arguably, if you look at the 2022 PFF rankings, he was the best player in football 2 years ago. He was the highest graded player, no matter the position, no matter the team, in all of the NFL in 2022, but he's the 6th or 7th ranked guard. Come on, let's be serious in here. Jerry Bowie, that feels like a newer name. Good morning. Getting this workout in while listening to great Atlanta Falcons content. Well, good. Get it, Jerry. Proud of you. Keep going. Get in there and work. Archangel says, cheers for you, bud. Keeping that forehead nice and shiny. See, you got your hat on backwards. I bet you got some forehead in there too. Come on. We got a bond between this. Too much hair right now. I needed a haircut about a month ago, so it'll probably be shorter when y'all see me next week. Get that training camp buzz going. But yeah, nice and shiny, and got the lights on. Guys like Coach help us do that. YMOF Jamal, good to see you, Jamal. He says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you as well. And here's Keith. He's always coming in with stars over on Facebook's big help to the show. George Patterson says, good morning, Falcons fans. Thanks for your updates and insight. Appreciate you being here. Otherwise, it's no fun at all. And Smooth C78 coming in with the coffee emoji and the donut emoji. I don't have the donut, but I got the coffee. My Lion Coffee. Check them out, lioncoffee.com. I will drink to that. So, a couple of things we wanted to get into today. Bleacher Report came out with their lists. They're doing offseason stuff, and they said the Atlanta Falcons won the offseason, or winning the offseason. Frankly, I agree with them on that. When you're talking about what were the 2 biggest needs for the Atlanta Falcons coming into this year, I'll say 3. To me, head coach. We've talked about this before. When the news came out that the Atlanta Falcons had a chance to get Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields and then still possibly draft a rookie quarterback, I said that was my number 1 choice. I was animated about going for $100 million on Kirk Cousins and then using a top 8. Y'all know how I felt about that. I was pretty animated about saying that was a misallocation of resources. So let's say you could get your number 1 choice, Scott, but you had to take Arthur Smith back. No, thank you. I would rather have $100 million in Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix and no Arthur Smith than my number 1 choice of how to use the in January, as we're talking about all these quarterback scenarios of Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields and then a rookie quarterback at number 8. And still having Arthur Smith. No, I wanted to change. So that was the number 1 for me. And then you've got your biggest question as far as personnel goes was quarterback. Well, that's been fixed. One way or another. What if Kirk Cousins isn't quite ready? One of the questions we have. 3 questions we had around Kirk Cousins coming in was injury. Injury looks pretty good. The contract looks pretty good. I think he's 9th in average, and he's only got a $25 million cap hit this year. Very few people actually know this, pay attention to this, but he costs the Minnesota Vikings more this year because of void years on their dead cap. I think it's like 27, 28. He's costing the Minnesota Vikings more this year than he's costing the Atlanta Falcons this year. That's a pretty good contract. And the third is, can he play close to a level that he was last year after coming back from an injury and being 36 years old? 1 and 2 are taken care of. Number 3, we'll wait and see. And then if for some reason it doesn't work out, you got a rookie that you can be excited about in Michael Penix Jr. So, yes, I think the Falcons won the offseason. They got the coach that they wanted in Raheem Morris. He got the coordinators he wanted. They kept the coaches they wanted from the staff. Arthur Smith had a pretty good staff, kept the guys that they wanted there. So, yes, I think the Atlanta Falcons did a very, very good job this offseason. How that translates, well, Vegas thinks that translates to about 3.5 to 4 more wins. From 7-10 to 10.5 wins, I think, is their over-under right now. And their schedule's a bit tougher. Last year was historically easy. They still are considered to have the 32nd ranked schedule in the NFL. And I think it got harder. That's how bad it was last year. So as we're hitting on the winning the offseason, I agree. The Falcons did a very good job. Did they do, if I'm grading it, do I give them an A+? No. I think, again, we've talked about the quarterback situation. There's some things I would have done a little bit differently, but you have addressed in a big way the biggest need on your team. Second biggest need on your team right now is pass rush. See how those guys start to pan out. Does Arnold Ebiketie take the next step? Does Braylon Trice become a guy? Do you play more big man fronts and use Caden Ellis and Troy Anderson coming off the edges a little bit more, or through the middle as pass rushers? Maybe. There's some flexibility in there based on the fact that you are big and fast in your front seven between your interior defensive linemen, that you are now too deep. Have we ever said that with the Atlanta Falcons? You're too deep on your interior defensive line, and you've got really talented linebackers. So very good this offseason. Did they fix every single problem? No, they haven't. I think you'd probably like another body in the secondary or two, and you'd like to have a fire-breathing edge rusher. Okay. Do you remember what it was like in 2022, Arthur Smith's second year, when we're looking at this roster thinking there's really only about 4 NFL plus NFL guys on this entire team? Yeah, it's considerably better. Considerably better. Let's see. Jordan Brown has come in. Good to see you, Jordan. He says, man, every year I say I'm not deep in with the Falcons, and then I decided every single year, life of a Falcons fan. Yeah, I use the on X, on Twitter X, I've used the Lucy and the Charlie Brown meme more than once about yanking it out from under you. It's just, again, it's different with this team. I know a lot of folks complain about Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank may not have gotten it right time and time again, but I have no doubt he's at least trying, and that's what gives you the hope. When you look at the team, I think the Falcons right now in allocated cap and allocated spend are like third. They're spending the third most money in the NFL right now when it looks at, if you go to Spot Rack and look at how much money they have committed to the team, it's like $280 million off of their that they have to. Their top 51 is under the cap, but they've got money allocated to other players based on practice squad, or how do you call it? It's former practice squad guys that sign futures contracts, part of the 90 that they have in the offseason and camp. Arthur Blank at least tries to get it right, and if he's trying, it gives you hope. I don't worry about, are the Falcons going to lose AJ Terrell because Arthur Blank won't pay him? No, that if they lose AJ Terrell, it'll be a decision internally that they make, not like it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s under the Smith family. It was like, oh yeah, well, as soon as this guy's rookie contract is up, he's gone. You hit on a couple draft picks and enjoy them for a little while and they're gone. But that's why you've got hope, because you know that this team is going to at least take a swing at the plate. They might swing and miss, but they've gone after the number one free agent in the NFL. They've spent the money. They keep their players that they want to keep. And yes, that gives you hope. That gives you hope. Now it's still the Atlanta Falcons. And do you believe in jinxes and curses? Unfortunately, I'm incredibly superstitious. But yes, definitely reasons to be excited. Reasons to be excited for this team and reasons to think that it can get better. So I agree with you on that one. Roy says, good morning, Scott. Will be interesting to see how Cousins does. All the word right now is that Cousins is doing everything that could be asked of him. If you didn't know he was coming off of an injury, you wouldn't know he's coming off of an injury. And I think that's the best thing you can say about Kirk Cousins right now. The best thing that I can say right now is good morning to Nick Kendall. Nick Kendall, how are you doing, man? Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too. Yeah, sorry I'm late. I got everything together and all of a sudden I hear screaming coming from upstairs. So I think the little guy's got my cold coming on because he sounds a little bit snotty. So woke up and couldn't breathe. So that's, we're off to a banger. It's good to be here and excited to be talking Falcons again. I want to give a shout out to Michael Litsky. I also got the package from Puerto Rico at the office the other day. So shout out to him. We love our Falcons fans and excited to talk ball and hang out this morning.
Yep, good to see you. Good to see you. Check your mic on that. I noticed it was a little flinty yesterday, so make sure there was just a little bit of an echo in it. So while I'm hitting on a couple of these, check and make sure that it's going through all the right sources and whatnot. Denver Luke, good to see you. Says good morning, Scott. And Nick, good morning to you, Luke. And Jordan Brown says, I just can't wait to see a dominant Falcons team like the second half of 2016. Yeah, that was when you look at overall the numbers on that defense, it wasn't good, but they went on a heater. The defense got hot in 2016 and they started playing really well. Need some, I think you still need some personnel help on the defensive side of the ball in order to get there. I think you've taken care of the defensive line. The linebackers are in good shape. You've got pieces in the secondary. Maybe you have pieces, but those are maybes. You've got maybes in the secondary and you got maybes at edge, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, you need difference makers at a lot of those spots. Depth of the secondary is always super key. Only as strong as your weakest unit. Can A.J. Terrell bounce back and be a no doubt number one? Obviously, Bates is incredible. And the other cornerback spot, that might be one we're watching for 2025 draft talk. And then at edge, I mean, Scott, you and I both are looking for superstars at edge. You can have useful pieces there, but unless you have somebody who's a game wrecker, somebody who's like, okay, fourth quarter, it's obvious pass rush. Here comes Nick Bosa. Like that type. You're always hunting for those real transcendent talents, which at edge right now, I don't think the Falcons possess, but everybody's looking for those guys. There's 6 to 10 of them at any given time in the league. So looking for that guy to take that defense to the next level.
Nighthawk Runner coming in. Appreciate you, Nighthawk Runner. That feels like a newer name. Good to see you. Coming with a super chat, that yellow super chat for us. He says, Scott, what do you think about all the insider reports that the Vikings were targeting Penix and not J.J. McCarthy? Maybe that's why the Falcons did not trade back. I haven't seen a lot of those, honestly. But let's just assume that they are out there. The Falcons still could have traded back one spot with the Bears. Nobody really knew that the Falcons were going to take Penix, and I mean nobody. So I can see why that's why you don't trade back with the Vikings. No, I don't want to. We know the Vikings need a quarterback. They thought they were going to get number 8 anyway, right? We don't want to trade back there, but you could have gone back from 8 to 9 without any worry of the Bears flipping that pick back to Minnesota. One, they're not going to do their division rivals any favors, and two, that just doesn't happen. This isn't the movies. Nobody says, okay, they're trading to 8. Oh, just kidding. We're trading back to 10. Haha. That doesn't happen. Is the paperwork and everything worth an extra 4th round pick or whatnot? It was a 5th that was floated out there to begin with. Maybe not. Listen, we're not messing with this. We don't want to think about it. I won't even be on the phone. I'm locked in. So, again, the Falcons could have gone back to 8 to 9 without any worry of losing Michael Penix.
Yeah. Maybe they could have waited until late on the clock to actually make the move and then guarantee themselves it'd be hard to negotiate another deal on the back end. But maybe then a deal's not happening. They'll screw you. You're just trying to make it so you get the 8th pick anyway. 5 seconds left. Oh, here you go. Thank you. Oh, and guess what? We're on the clock now.
Yeah, so you can get professional assurances from guys too. Listen, I mean, Ryan Poles, there's cameras everywhere. You're not going to say, yes, you can't take this guy. You can't, we knew who they're not going to take. You're not going to flip this pick. No, we're not going to flip it. You could have gotten assurances from it. So I think the Vikings ended up with the guy. If they wanted to move up for the top 3, do you think they could have?
I've heard that the Patriots were asking for an unbelievable haul to get up to number 3.
All along. Who's getting into the top 3? Nobody's getting into the top 3. I think
sounds
they wanted
like the
McCarthy.
Vikings.
I think they got McCarthy.
Yeah, it sounds like the Vikings were interested. I mean, this is still April, May talk here, so things could be different. Everybody got their guy, right? Scott, it's that time of year.
Of course, everybody gets their guy.
But it did sound like the Vikings were making some pretty hard moves to get up to number 3 overall. But we're talking about 3 firsts, 3 seconds, a player. And it was just deemed too much by the Vikings when there were other options at quarterback who maybe they didn't like as much, but not at the cost of, an unknown, like kind of the Trey Lance package to go from, 11 at the Vikings were at, up to 3. So didn't happen in the end. It was a hard move to move off those spots.
And the Dolphins weren't in the quarterback market. You couldn't get into 1, 2, and 3, so that all the talk was them going up to 4 or 5. And if they really wanted to, I think they could have gotten up into 5. I'm forgetting who was who because the Cardinals went at 4. That would have been tough. You would have had to pay through the nose to do that. I guess the early reviews on Marvin Harrison Jr. are just through the roof right now. 6, I think. Who was at 5? I don't remember who was at 5.
6 was the Giants.
I thought 6 was the Giants.
5 was the Chargers.
5 was the Chargers. You could have done business with the Chargers if you wanted to move up. If you really wanted to get Michael Penix, if you really wanted to get, if you were afraid of losing J.J. McCarthy, they could have made a move. I think they ended up with the guy they wanted, and they made a slight trade up to make sure that they got it, just to make sure especially after the Falcons made their move. They're like, wait a minute. We don't want the Broncos. We don't want the Raiders,
Rams
making a move in order to get a quarterback that we want. So, no, I think the Falcons targeted a guy. They got the guy. They got the guy they wanted. Anthony Shea comes in. He asks, is Brandon Ayuk from the 49ers a realistic choice / option for the Atlanta Falcons?
Well, first off, beautiful picture, Anthony Shea. Congrats. I don't know how old that is, but if it's new, congratulations. That was
taken early, that's for sure. That's a little one.
Yep, that's a pipsqueak for sure. But congratulations to you and your partner on the very healthy and beautiful looking baby there, whenever that was taken. So I just wanted to take time to give you a shout out for that one, Anthony. Beautiful picture. And as far as Brandon Ayuk, I guess in theory, you have the rookie quarterback contract. You have a team that's pretty set up. You have questions at wide receiver too. But it just seems like there's going to be teams that are going to probably value that more. For the Falcons, you are paying the veteran quarterback. Even though you have the rookie quarterback contract, you still have the huge veteran quarterback cost. You have a team that, despite having questions at wide receiver too, your allocation of targets can be distributed differently, because you should, in theory, have Kyle Pitts playing at a high level this season. You have Bijan Robinson. You're going to spend another first-round pick on a skill position player. I don't know. You have questions at tackle coming up here this offseason, offensive tackle, still looking for an edge rusher, cornerback as well. So I think it's probably not in the cards for the Falcons. I'd keep an eye out on a team like the Commanders, maybe, I don't know, a team that's maybe desperate for a young quarterback to take off, maybe the Panthers as well. But a team, I don't think the Falcons are totally realistic. I haven't heard them connected at all.
That was a long way of saying no, Anthony.
But why no?
I don't think no, and I'll go into the reasons too. Just to reiterate what Nick says, I don't think Brandon Ayuk is an option for the Falcons. I think he's too expensive. Is what it's going to boil down to. He's going to want a $25+ million a year contract. Now the Falcons have some money. When instead of being $70 million over the 20-25 million salary cap, like we got used to for a while playing the Saints games, they still don't have a ton of money. They've got options. They can open up a bunch of money, but do they want to use it on a wide receiver? They've got Drake London's coming up. Kyle Pitts' number gets bigger next year on his 5th-year option. AJ Terrell is going to need a new contract, but you can actually lower his cap number from 2024 to 2025 based on an extension. That there is money, but what would it cost you? First off, San Francisco says, no, we're not trading him. Forget it. But that could be a negotiating tack. I just think the cost reward isn't there, Anthony. I don't think it makes sense. And Daniel Flick wrote about this on FalconsSI.com yesterday and said, no, and here's why. And at the very end, I said, hey, listen, as I was editing it, do you mind if I put in but Nick Bosa ... At the end of this, he's like, go for it. I'm like, okay, because if you're going to spend big, if you're going to have a huge allocation of resources right now on any player, it would need to be on defense, not another skill player. Let's use the draft picks for those. Let's keep going that direction. Fine. Instead of $30 million on a wide receiver, give me that edge. Give me that. Let's put some of that money. Let's put some of those resources into the defense. Build the offense through the draft. Let's supplement the defense through free agency.
I think post Cousins deal, if you still are on the rookie contract and Penix looks like the guy, you can probably survive paying a wide receiver big money, but it's really hard to pay wide receiver and quarterback massive money and still field a competent roster. So you're talking, 3 years down the line, maybe you can look at that then, but not yet.
And when you say
And
that, you mean at least another,
yep,
because post
London.
Penix is Drake London time.
Yep.
Post
This
Penix,
is
the first year of Michael Penix, the first year that you could get out from under the biggest chunk of Kirk Cousins would be 26, which is in 2 seasons. That would be year 3 and year 4 gone for Drake London. So you'd be entering his 5th-year option, which for a wide receiver, and if he gets a Pro Bowl over the next couple of years, well, goodness, what was that this year? Let me see. Draft history, 5th-year options. Jamar Chase had one Pro Bowl. It was $22 million was the 5th-year option. So
cha-ching.
Drake London, you're talking $20+ million in that will be taking that up if he becomes a guy who, frankly, he's on track to become. He's been really good.
But I was leading into that. You could pay a wide receiver, might be somebody already on the roster in that case, and it does line up well with still having the cost control of the rookie contract, assuming Penix is the guy, obviously, with all theory until games are played. Roderick Cook comes in and says, we got money for Bosa, Scott. Anybody, you have money for difference makers at superstar positions. You find the money. You work the contract out. You do what you can. It's one reason also I would be pretty surprised if the 49ers did move him just because he's a difference maker. Now, I guess he does. If he did move him, that'd be a red flag for me because he's had injuries. And I'd be like, okay, is there something else going on here? But Bosa is one of the 4 premier pass rushers in football, 4 premier edge rushers in football, in my opinion, right now, along with Crosby, maybe 5. I guess Crosby, Watt, Garrett, Parsons, and Nick Bosa. Those are the big difference makers right now. But hey, if he was available, yeah, you'd find the money for him.
Yeah, he's got a $62 million dead cap hit, so he's not going anywhere. But yes, well, you don't have the money for Ayuk, but you got the money for Bosa. I've got enough money into my wide receiver core and investment into my offense that I don't mind allocating a big chunk of that for the defense. So yes, if Bosa was available and he needed $30 million to come to Atlanta, I think the Falcons could find $30 million. Now, it wouldn't just be $30 million. It would be probably 2 first-round draft picks and $30 million. And that becomes, I'm much more on the conservative side when it comes to swinging big on these deals, Nick. I like having more players. I like having the extra draft picks. I'd rather have 6 guys. You give me $30 million. I'd rather have 3 $10 million defenders than one Nick Bosa. And 2 first-round draft picks. That's 5 players. I'd rather have 2 first-round draft picks and 3 $10 million players than Nick Bosa. So I get really, really hedged when it comes to making deals like this. We've seen some pretty good edge rushers go for much cheaper than that, Nick. Including was it Sweat to the Bears, and then he ended up signing up. He went pretty cheap for what it cost to get him. And he signed a big contract. Okay. And then Brian Burns went for what, a 2nd-round pick? Yes, please. Then it doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah. I mean, Bosa's in a different tier than those guys, of course, but he's missed a lot of games with injuries. So we're on watch for a difference maker at edge. I mean, it's something that you and I have been calling for the Falcons since we've been doing the show. A team that's really been pretty anemic in the difference maker pass rushing department. And I see there's some questions going on from Colton about Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick, he had some upset feelings, right? Getting traded to the Jets from the Eagles, and then they go out there and make another move. Hassan Reddick could be an interesting piece. I mean, he's more of a complementary piece overall, but I mean, if you can't get the difference maker, getting a wave of guys having a good first and second unit's the best way to build a great defensive line. So if he was available for trade, maybe, a 3rd-round pick or something, that'd be interesting, but I haven't heard anything on his market other than he's been a little upset.
So the final thing wanted to get into here before, and Colton, yeah, I think you saw that hopefully. in there. Well, because I saw it just pop up again. Final thing I wanted to get into before we get going here on Wednesday, because we got camp next week. Hello. I said the sleeper acquisition for the Atlanta Falcons, a guy that is kind of under the radar who could make a big difference. And I'm going to drop that link in here in the chat. And this was the one I was talking about this is a different one. This is just happens to be also speaking of the San Francisco 49ers. The Atlanta Falcons signed Charlie Warner to a deal last year in the offseason to come in and basically be tight end 2-1, depending on how you want to use him. Now, I say that because I hit back on all the people that end up saying the Falcons led the league in 12 personnel last year. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Just because you've got Kyle Pitts in the slot or out wide where he spent 85% of his snaps at receiver, just because you call him a tight end doesn't mean it's a 2 tight end set. He's a receiver.
Yeah.
A 2 tight end set to me, Nick, it's 5 across the line, 2 tight ends with their hands in the rubber pellets. That's 12 personnel. That's a 2 tight end set to me. Not
Old
Kyle
school.
Pitts lined out wide and Jonnu Smith lined up as a tight end. That's not a 2 tight end set. That's Kyle Pitts as wide receiver. That said, it's ironic, Nick, that the Falcons led the league in 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends on the field, but couldn't block. Their tight ends could not block. The vast majority of these snaps, Nick, were Kyle Pitts, Michael Pruitt, and Jonnu Smith. Do you know what the highest grade, run block grade from PFF was on those 3 players?
61.
47. The highest run block grade from those 3 tight ends, 2 of them were on the field a lot, 12 personnel, was 47 in the run block grade. 47. Charlie Warner is coming in with a 77 run block grade coming in from the San Francisco 49ers. And you know he's blocking in a variety of schemes, including, well, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay's different, a little bit different schemes, but they're going to run some similar concepts. The complexity of the offense, the way they want to try and use Bijan Robinson, et cetera, et cetera. Charlie Warner, I haven't given it credit until I was reading Daniel's article that how much he might be able to be a missing piece to this offense, Nick.
I will say again, just relating it back to the Broncos, I feel like the run blocking grades for a lot of guys, unless you have years and years of data, can be pretty finicky and fickle, and they can fluctuate massively. The Broncos last season paid essentially a 6 offensive linemen and Chris Manhertz, and you got this guy who's always going to be there, a really good blocker. Little hit or miss in the blocking last season. So unless you have like a Mercedes Lewis, Rob Gronkowski, where it's been like overwhelming, obvious that they are dominating the blocking, it can fluctuate year to year. That said, it's going to be hard to not improve upon the inline blocking last season. So even if you go, average, that's going to be an upgrade. So we'll see. I will disagree with you a little bit, Scott, just as terms of the old school mentality of, the hand in the dirt, 12 personnel, just because it's happening everywhere, right? Defense as well. Is he edge? Is he linebacker? Is he safety? Positionless football is here. You got to move these guys around and isolate matchups, and that's on both sides. I hear what you're saying, though. More of a classic inline Y is what
you
you're
have.
looking for.
Kyle Pitts lined up at X, out wide on the boundary.
That's not tight. Yeah.
And you call it a 12 personnel?
Yeah,
that's wrong.
Yep. But if he's big slot, he doesn't have to be. I think you can have.
I'm closer to that. He's at least within arm's reach, especially with his reach of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Capable of blocking a linebacker because he's down in there. I'm closer with that. But he had more snaps at XZ out wide than he did in line. And I guarantee you, every time Kyle Pitts was on the field with either Jonnu Smith or Michael Pruitt, they called it 12 personnel. And that's just wrong. They're like, the Falcons are talking about playing Kyle Pitts more at wide receiver this year. How could you possibly play a more at wide receiver this year? Took 85 of his snaps at slot or out wide. So
you need to get in contact with Kyle Pitts' agent. Because he would love hearing.
I bet he wishes that 5th-year option was in the 20 million range instead of the 10 at tight end. Now, Terry Clark, real quick, coming in. How much would it cost to kick the tires on an Ayuk trade? Nothing to try. But it's going to cost you a lot. It would cost you a lot. And then, Nick, one of your points on this with the run blocking grade was unless you've got money, and then you hit on my point that I wanted to make. I was just doing my best not to interrupt you for a change. Was if you've got a dominant tight end, then you can see it. But on the flip side, if you're that bad, like the Falcons tight ends were at run blocking, you can see that too. So it was they could get in some guys' ways, but they weren't moving everybody. I think Charlie Warner is going to be an upgrade for when you take the snaps on offense and you take a Charlie Warner and a Darnell Mooney in the slot instead of Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith, your offense just got better.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that, and more versatile too, right? A team that wants to be able to run out of 11 personnel. That means that your limited tight ends on the field need to be better at blocking. So that is a useful piece to have. Will it move the needle that much? It just makes you more multiple. And in an NFL, being multiple is good as long as you are good at the multiple things you do.
I can see a lot of 12 personnel again. But instead of Jonnu Smith, it'll be Charlie Warner. And instead of Van Jefferson, it will be Darnell Mooney. And those are good things. Those are good things. And then you've got a healthy Kyle Pitts and Kirk Cousins orchestrating things and Zach Robinson calling plays. So I think it was a subtle piece. When you talk about all the moves the Falcons made and the quarterbacks have gotten 99% of the airtime, including here, the Charlie Warner acquisition is a sleeper. That's a sleeper acquisition for me.
Yeah, could be a big difference maker for you in the end. I mean, I'll still have to go with Rondale Moore as my sleeper because he was a highly drafted asset, and in a league right now where teams are just begging to find explosive plays out there, Moore can be a explosive playmaker, a bucket getter, if you will. Just get him the ball, manufactured space, and let him create. Obviously, it didn't work out as well in that 10 personnel heavy, weird Cliff Kingsbury stuff going on. That didn't obviously translate the best to the NFL, but Moore is a talented player. I'm a little biased because, I mean, he blew me away at Purdue, starting as a true freshman player even. I was like, man, I would kill for a wide receiver like that at Iowa. God bless. But he's an interesting player, and I'm excited to see what he can do. And I think he can be explosive in limited touches, which is big for an offense like this with a lot of mouths to feed.
Trevor Simpson, he's in the Kirk Cousins is a top 10 quarterback camp. He's been in every year in Minnesota. Players in the NFL voted him the 6th best quarterback NFL active players. Played in the same regular season playoffs as Burrow. However you rate, and that's fine. Again, I think it's close. I think, if you were to say he's 6 to 10 or if he's 11 to 13, I think there's a pretty, as Nick likes to say, tiers of quarterbacks. I think he's in that tier. I wouldn't argue. That's not a hill I'm going to die on. As I said earlier today, Chris Lindstrom being 6 or 7 at guard, that's one I'm going to get agitated about. That's the one I'm going to fight. And they voted him the second best guard. Again, I'm not going to argue if he's number 1 or number 2. That's good. I'm not going to argue if Kirk Cousins is 7 or 12. Again, tiers. I think that's probably the right tier for him coming in. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's not going to win football games. It's where it's not how you drive, it's how you arrive kind of thing. You putt for dough. It's how they finish. It's how they play. That's what's going to matter. So I'm not going to die on that hill. Trevor, I think Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback, and I think the Falcons are going to be a lot better because of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's going to be fun to see them this year. Any other sleepers here, Scott? I mean, I guess we might be able to call somebody like a Zach Harrison a sleeper to an extent. He kind of was hot last season down the stretch, and he's got a chance to be a starter. I mean,
Ebiketie won for me. Arnold Ebiketie.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
We know about him in Atlanta. and he was an ascending player, but with 6 sacks, he's not really on anybody's radar. But there's a chance he could go from 6 to 12. He could be a double-digit sacks guy this year without a doubt. Wouldn't surprise Falcons fans if Ebiketie was in double digits this year. I don't think it would surprise a lot of us. So that to me, that makes him a little bit of a sleeper because nobody outside of Atlanta is talking about Ebiketie.
Yeah. Maybe in College Station a little bit, but that's, reliving stuff. Man, NCAA football would be fun if we had Ebiketie on there, right? But congrats to everybody also. NCAA football back out. I've spent way too many hours playing that game. It looks like it's going to be a fun one. Not enough for me to spend $500 on a new system, but
that was last year. I already have the PS5 in the house.
Okay. Did Sean buy the new NCAA football yet? Or
I don't know what he's playing right now. He does play a lot of online stuff, but I might make him try. Real quick before we get out of here, because of Terry's bringing up Arthur Smith again. I forgot to get into this. There was a report yesterday, Nick, or this week that we wrote up. Daniel had it that Diana Rossini said that the Jets reached out to Arthur Smith to be Nathaniel Hackett's helper as a consultant / co-coordinator, play calling person up in New York before he got the offensive coordinator gig with the New York Jets. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, that's if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Right, Scott? That's the mood we need to live by there. But I mean, God, Hackett's still with the Jets. I don't understand.
But I mean, I need a sugar daddy like that, like Aaron Rodgers. How much money has Nathaniel Hackett made being Aaron Rodgers' boy?
We've always said
for Broncos because that's where most of his money came from, as one head coaching gig.
We say all the time, Scott. I mean, it doesn't matter what you know; it matters who you know, and that's true in football, and that's true in life. You can be the most competent ever, but if you have a connection, if you're somebody's friend or somebody's son or something, then you can go pretty darn far when you don't have the qualifications. So cronyism, not nepotism. Oh, I gave an example of nepotism too, but cronyism can take you pretty far. I know that, being an Iowa fan, right? Brian Ferentz joke for years now, pretty much had to burn the program down to get some change there. But yeah, pretty wild. I don't know. Hackett still seems like a decent guy, but I'm glad that that's in the rearview mirror. It's not a good guy league, right? It's about winning football games in the end. As long as you're not committing felonies, I'll take it.
Yeah, I always said that about Nick Saban. I don't necessarily want to play golf with him, but by God, I'd love him coaching my football team. I don't care. I don't mind an asshole. I can't stand a hypocrite. So as long as they're successful, they're allowed to be like that. On that note, listen, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody joining us today. I want to say thank you to our super chat superstars. Keith and Ellen Johnson came in. Coach got us kicked off nice and early, and the Nighthawk runner coming in as well. Thank you so much. We will be back on Monday. It is almost time it'll be Falcons football week with training camp starting next week. We'll get into some camp battles, anything new that might happen. See if they bring in a couple new players. It wouldn't surprise me if there were some new faces over in Flowery Branch by the time they kick off here in about a week, just a little over a week. So on that note, we are going to get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week and have a great weekend.
Peace.